a press club or bias, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Welcome to Nowhere to Hide. As you can see, I busted out of the studio today and I'm on location. This fellow is Dean Dimond. Dean is a farmer in Jerome County, and we've had a couple of great articles. Rachel Hazlip with the Idaho Freedom Foundation published one earlier in October. And Dean, you've been at the center of a little bit of controversy, but I mean that in the most complimentary way. There was a supplemental school levy that was voted on earlier this week, as I understand it, by 4 votes. Yeah. The levy failed. But there was some intrigue leading up to that, and I'd like to know a little bit about, walk us through what happened, and maybe tell us a little bit about your history and why you feel like you had a stake in this.
Well, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but they actually ran this same levy back in May, and so that's when we really started protesting, and actually they ran it 2 years before that too, and so going in there, and we got talking and different problems and stuff that we've seen at the school, and we thought, well, really, do they need the money? And you know, I mean, I'm all for the kids, and we'll support the kids if they need it, and if the money's going towards the kids. But every time I went to the school board, superintendent, whatever, I just kept running into roadblocks as to what they were actually spending the money on.
Now, like they were being vague in terms of how it was being utilized, or?
You know, it even goes back further than that. It all started back when I first wanted to see their copy of their policy manual. And you would have thought that would be the most basic, easiest thing in the world to get. And it turned out to be like the biggest secret in the Magic Valley. And we had to go to kind of bats to get their policy manual. And so when we finally was able to get that, and just side note, it is online now.
Okay.
It just started leading into other things that we just didn't have access to. The information of where our money was going, where, you know, the policies that the school was following and all that. It was just, and I'm not implying that there's embezzlement or anything else like that going on. I am saying that show us where the money's going and show us that it's actually helping the kids.
No, that makes sense. And I know for some people, the idea, but that's questioning. You know, we trust these systems, we trust government. But if you want to be an involved and engaged citizen, you've got to be willing to do like Dean and ask questions that some people may find inconvenient, but nonetheless, that's part of what they do. They serve the public. Talk to me about some of the reasons then. I mean, besides the transparency, you could not support the vote on the levy this time. Were there any other reasons, you know, in addition to that?
Well, it come back down to other issues, and I'm not criticizing the teachers or anybody at the school that way. I'm coming in and saying there's other problems that's going on in the school, and it seems like in today's time, when you start having problems, then you start following the money, you will start finding the roots of the problems. And so then this levy comes up, and we're like, well, why do you need it? And you get looking, and they have more teachers than what the state says they need, which they may need. I don't know, but why? So then when you start asking them questions and you don't get answers, and you get it all thrown into a big bunch where they say, you know, salaries and benefits is what they say they need it for. And that's their biggest expense. And we all know that you can do that. You can fudge numbers. You can hide something in your biggest expense. And so then you're like, okay, now break it out and detail it out. Because I think it's going to point, if we can find out where the money goes, hopefully this levy thing sticks and it fails. And now they're going to have to come in and make true cuts and show us where the money was going. And if them do start to hurt the kids, then heck, I'll go campaign for them to get the money back. If they show it, and they need to be upfront and honest with us where the money's going.
Fair enough. So talk about the signs. You decided, no, I can't support it this year as part of your free speech.
I never in the world thought that it was against the law to put a sign on my own property that said, vote no on a levy. And holy cow, I cannot believe the repercussions and the fallout from my wife painting a sign that says, vote no on a school levy.
So tell us about that fallout. What exactly happened?
Well, at first we put up a few signs, you know, and you know, like I say, my wife made it. And then, you know, they have the election and stuff. And I get notified from the county. I got this big old letter taking me to court and filed a complaint in district court and everything else. And there was another individual that sent out some flyers. and they complained to us that we violated the Sunshine Act of, the United States or of Idaho or however that is,
Wow.
for putting signs in our yard.
So, in other words, were they treating it like you had somehow started some kind of a political campaign, and so therefore you should have been running that campaign through official channels, or?
Yeah, they were like you're this big pole, and they thought we were this big pack or whatever they call them, and they're going out after us and everything, and we're like, we was a couple neighbors that said, we don't want this school levy, we want some accountability at our school, we're going to work together and tell other people what's going on, inform the voters. And I mean, we're just a couple neighbors, and not big politicians. We don't have big political goals. We just thought, wow, we thought we had the right to voice our opinion.
Dean, was there a threat of like criminal penalties, or was it just getting bogged down in the whole legal process? And then we'll take this to the courts.
The letter, and I can show you the letter, but it had, I can't remember the exact amount, but like $200 in criminal penalties, but 6 months in jail. And you're like, 6 months,
That's serious.
And the Secretary of State, when I asked him about it, he says, "Oh, you wouldn't have got the 6 months in jail." And I says, "But you put it in the stupid letter,
Right.
And I was concerned enough that I consulted with some attorneys about it, and they said, "No, this is serious. If you don't fight this and you don't come back, this is serious stuff." And you're like, "Well, geez, where do I get the money to fight an attorney and then find an attorney that would take on the school and blah, blah, blah?" It turned out to be a big mess that way. Fortunately, as they investigated into it, they decided to just drop the charges.
So who pointed them in your direction to make sure that they could file that?
It come from the Ty Jones is the one that filled out the thing, who is the superintendent of Valley Schools.
Oh, just a coincidence, I guess.
Well, and I think that's totally inappropriate. He made false allegations against me as a parent. He singled me out. He listed 3 of us by name, with no evidence to back up what he was saying.
Wow.
He just flat, and I guess he didn't break any laws. Anybody can file a complaint, but I would think that in a position working for the public, that it comes with another ethical boundaries that they shouldn't cross, and I think he crossed them.
And Dean, you mentioned that you aren't the only one who kind of felt the squeeze or felt that there was some pressure being applied. Right. Talk to me about there was a business owner here in the community who likewise was given a little nudge.
That was crazy. One of my friends, I'd called and asked him if I could put a sign in his yard, kind of explained what my things was. He said, "Oh, absolutely." So we went and stuck a sign in his yard, didn't think twice about it. And then when he went to fill up his vending machines to get ready for school, they basically informed him that he needed to remove his vending machine from the school. Ooh. And when he asked why, it was a longer story than this, but basically summing it all up, when he asked why, they said because he had that sign in his yard, and if he wasn't going to support the school, they weren't going to support him. So we're all in awe, saying that, wow, she actually come right out and said that. I mean, let's face it, stuff like that happens, and usually, their application gets put to the bottom of the pile, but it's so brazen for her to come right out and say it. And then he went to the school board meeting and asked the trustees about it. They didn't know anything about it, and so they turned and asked her, and she openly told them again that they had met as an administration and decided that was the proper action, and he was to take his signs or his vending machines out of the school.
All right, I have 2 questions for you here, Dean, and I want to start with this one just because of what you've described. How have we descended to the place where communities, and this is a small community, this is not some big impersonal metropolis, but how did we get to the point where just simply disagreeing on a policy matter can lead to, that's like legitimate pressure being put on people.
It is, and I just don't understand it. We're an American. I don't want to sound like this big extreme theorist and stuff, but man, we had soldiers and everything that went and fought for our right to vote, to voice our opinions, and this is just a total slap in the face to all that. Like I said, I'm not some big radical guys that, and I wasn't out asking. I just put a couple signs in my yard. And then the retaliation back through the school and all that, it's just, in my opinion, and somebody was talking to me about this the other day, school boards is the most basic, I don't want to say lowest, but lowest form of government. Because, it's not like we're talking the President of the United States or like that. And if we can't feel comfortable petitioning our local school board, wow, where does that leave us?
And here's my final question for you, Dean. media typically casts these kind of things in a it's a personality conflict. This is personalities. You're a troublemaker, or so they say, but there's a principle that's at stake here. What's the principle that motivates you to speak up when others would say, oh, I don't really want to, I don't want to stir the water any?
I think their motive was to scare people, because a lot of people do get scared when you come in and you get threatened with lawsuits, or you get threatened with all this, and that would influence the vote, the outcome of the vote. And the people will see what happened to me, and they're saying, I don't want to deal with all that, so I'm just going to stay out of it. My personality is a little different. You push back, I push harder,
And thank goodness. Right? Well, thanks for taking the time to visit with us. Again, this is Dean Dimond, troublemaker, but the right kind of troublemaker. In fact, the kind we should all aspire to be. Engaged citizens who seek accountability, and congratulations on your efforts. 4 votes, was it?
4 votes.
All right.
Actually, technically it'd be 5, right? Because a tie they still would have lost. So, hey.
Thanks for joining us. This is Nowhere to Hide.